Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
I get it. Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyenji.
Okay. What's that? Nsila ID soto.
That's soto. Sorry. I get it.
Bijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariya.
Mbale.
Mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariya.
Jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbali ya bere. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato ni fo bolon blabe.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 ti nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale le dadi man domorol din fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je.
Wo moyo diat.
Apelenta
baraka. Ni ma lafta nyelen kendol e bina.
Yalo bukani la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Baraka.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Hello and welcome to the Brunch on Kefatu Live, our weekly look at current affairs. Well, today, as the Gambia celebrates 60 years of independence, the program will look at the nation at 60. We will we'll travel back to 1965 and give our perspective of what the nation have achieved and could have achieved and what the future may look like on all spheres of life for the country. And with me in the studio to do that, I'm most privileged to have Madi Jobarteh. He is a well-known civic rights activist and is the executive director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. And also Mustapha Darboe. He is from the Republic, the newest investigative journalistic platform in the country. Gentlemen, welcome to the Brunch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Madi, you have written extensively over the last few days about the independence anniversary celebrations that is going to happen on Tuesday. The Gambia government has put up a glamorous program, it looks like, to celebrate the day with we had invitations been sent out to several heads of states. There are cultural, and sporting activities as usual organized alongside the formal event, which is a march past and presidential address to school children, and now at the Makati Square, of course, where it all started. But Mari, let's look back to 1965 to date. What a country had the Gambia lived through in the last three eras, because we had the Sadauda regime, the Jaya Jammeh regime, and now the Barrow regime. Has the Gambia accomplished what our forefathers or our people have expected when the country was handed down to ourselves by the British in 1965? Of course, there is always that, because there is in fact two school of thought about that, because some people believe April 1970 is actually our independence. So I don't know which side of the argument do you belong to as far as 65 and 70 is concerned. But then all the same, I want to know your perspective as to whether we have come as a country, we have accomplished what we should have at the age of 60.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. And
Thank you.
Yeah, and glad to be here with Mustapha. Yeah, I belong to the school of thought that holds that our independence, was on 24th April 1970, based on the legal history, and the legal instruments and political institutions that were created from 1965 to 1970. Clearly shows that the Gambia was a dominion under the British Empire. Now, I know, these are things folks don't give much attention to, importance to. Some say there is a date, and then there's this confusion. You hear people say, no, we got independence 65, and then we became a republic. So you wonder whether people really understand when we say a republic, what that means, or what independence means. But overall, for me, it is significant because it explains the malaise that this country has been confronted with since 1965.
Yes.
Our failure or indifference to recognize the fundamentals, so that we set ourselves on the right path. So for me, I really want sometime this conversation to come, because it will generate a lot of issues.
Yes.
For which I'm sure people will begin to ask themselves, wow, have we kept the Gambia, as we should have, even if we had independence in 1965 to date?
To date, yes.
Now, to that question, I think, one just needs to look at the indicators, social, economic, political indicators.
Exactly.
And when you do that, I think it is glaring that indeed we have not kept this country, tended, served, cared for, looked after this country as a people, a society and state, as we should, so that today, 60 years after 1965, I think our country is hugely afflicted, by misgovernance, corruption, deprivation, poverty, and all the attendant problems that they generate.
But would it not be unfair, given the fact that we were told that at the time the British were going, the country was such an what do we call it? Such a state that people said may not even be viable as a nation state, and somewhere even suggesting we probably would have done well by amalgamating the country to Senegal. So if today the country was able to stand on its own for 60 years, isn't that itself alone a manifestation of progress?
No, our purpose in life is not just to breathe in and breathe out.
Oh,
yes. I mean,
okay.
I think
I like that.
Ultimately we want to live a dignified life,
Yes.
a life of safety and security, and a life of happiness and all of that. So the mere fact that you've been there, I mean, that is not the issue.
When you could have been a subordinate of another country.
Yes, and again, talking about that, Singapore was said, similar things were said about Singapore at the time. And Singapore gained their independence, I think, sometime in August 1965. So we are older than Singapore, at least for few months.
Yeah.
And, Singapore's first president, Lee Kuan Yew, wrote a book sometime in 2000.
Yeah.
From third world to fourth world, the story of Singapore. And when you read that book, and you look at Singapore today, you realize that for the Gambia too, it was not a matter of whether we are viable. I think this British guy who said the improbable nation.
Improbable, yes.
Yes, so it is not a question of that whether we were viable. I think God in his wisdom has made the human being in such a way that even if they drop you alone on an island, let's say Kunta Kinte Island, you can transform it. That is an inherent ability that human beings have. And Gambia has all the opportunities, the resources that any country needs, any people need to build the most advanced society. We have practically Gambia has no natural obstacles.
Oh, well, it's interesting because that's what the politicians said. We are very limited in resources. That's what they said.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe it's the poverty of their minds, but we are hugely endowed with resources. We have an ocean, we have a river Gambia.
Yes.
We have land that is fertile throughout. No rocky places, anything like that.
Exactly.
An abundance of rainwater and underground water. Above all, we have very industrious people. So I think it is a big, insult really, for anyone, but ourselves particularly, to want to point out, obstacles just to justify where we are. There is absolutely no justification. We have failed ourselves as a nation, really. Otherwise, yes, we have all the means, all the potentials, the resources to have built a very, socio-economical developed society, but also to build a well-governed society. Because at the end of the day, Gambia, we have Muslims and Christians. We have Fulas, Jolas, Mandinkas, and so on, who have cultures that have immense norms and values. Sacred values. And of course, in our laws, and we went to study, we educated. So the issue now is between you and me, between us here and everywhere else. Are we saying we cannot build a relationship of justice, of truth? We cannot build a community of respect, of non-discrimination, of equality, giving all the good values that exist in our religions and cultures and our education. So that in itself is a big failure. That at the end of the day, the injustice in this society, the inequality, the discrimination based on sectarian things. I look at you because you are a man or a woman, because you are this ethnic group or that ethnic or that religion, and I despise you or discriminate you. For that to even exist is a failure. You know, and these are all resources. So resources are not just material, but these are, you know, social capital. These are resources that when you look at it in the Gambia, it's unlimited, because let's talk about storytelling. You know, I mean, our folk tales, our legends in our various cultures. You know, that is immense. We watch Tom and Jerry from the
all
UK.
of them teaches morality.
Exactly, but also the entertainment value of it. So whether it's come to music, whether it's come to folk tales, it comes to dress. You know, we have an array of colors and textiles that, you know, is beautiful. You come to a cuisine. So everything about Gambia, people shouldn't just look at resources as diamond and oil. But the fact that we have those intangible and tangible cultural forms and materials and ideas, you know, are all things that are resources for us to build a very fair and just and open society, for which we have failed to do.
Yet we failed. Good. We will come to dissect on those failures, dividing them, of course, into these three eras, I said, because leadership is important in everything, because it inspires and guides. So we will take the Jawara, Jammeh, and Barrow regimes to see how leadership have failed or accomplished, if any, you know, towards the failure of achieving these things you have itemized. Mustapha, we will deal, of course, with the recent exposes by the Republic, but let's go back, your perspective of the country, well, some people the country that, you know, should have been, but never was, as far as you are concerned. At 60 years, how has Gambia fared?
I think badly. That has always been my position. I think that we were not doing very bad when this guy, Bekele Rice guy, called us an improbable nation. The figures weren't even very bad, because I think we were talking about a 30% budget deficit, 30% between the amount of money we have and what it would take to fund the operation of government. So the UK was to contribute 30%. So the 30% budget deficit wasn't so bad that you would say we couldn't exist as a state. I think he was exaggerating it. And I think even folks who were at the time there knew that he was exaggerating, and the people who were even opposed to full-fledged independence did so largely because they thought that independence was going to take away their privilege. For example, the governor opposed to it.
Okay.
But who was the governor? He was the representative of the Queen.
Queen, yes.
And the Queen was the head of state. So
Absolutely.
if we transitioned from constitutional monarchy into a republican system, where would the governor have been? He was going to be sacked. The opposition, P.S. Njai and others, also on the same privilege. So of course some took the excuse that they didn't understand the consequences at the time, so that is why 1965 we couldn't you know, so I think we weren't doing so bad at the time, and I think the idea of poor country in itself is fundamentally problematic, and that is part of the reasons why these excuses of begging continue to inhabit the third world. So for example, there is no such thing called a poor country.
You subscribe to Madi's view that we had abundance in terms of resources?
Yes, there is no such thing called a poor country. Because a country has the resources. Now, how do you become rich? You invest those resources to become rich. So you either invest and you become rich, or you spend and become poor. So it's so long as the resources is there, you are not poor. A poor person is the person who lacks the resources. But there is no country that lacks the resources. That is why I rather would use mismanaged economies and not poor countries, because it encourages bad behavior. Because what's so far been happening in the Gambia from independence to date, even under Jammeh, you looked at it, and we can give you tons and tons and tons and tons of examples of how begging has retarded the Gambia, has made us lazy people. So for example,
begging by individuals, or the country itself? Yeah,
country itself.
Okay. Yeah.
So for example, I once gave an example of having Ministry of between January to April 2019.
Yes.
Ministry of Environment was supposed to raise over 300 million from timber sales. They stole all of it, 300 million plus. The same year, they went to Turkey's embassy. No, a few years down the line, they went to Turkey's embassy to build them a borehole at the Monkey Park. A borehole will cost you 200,000. Yeah. Well, you just stole 300 million. So the Turkish embassy would have said, "Oh, these guys don't have the money to build a borehole." No, but they do. They have a money to build a borehole. They just stole it, right? Now that's the same situation that Gambia has found itself in, and that I think the most fundamental problem that happened at independence. I said independence at the time because we effectively had political control. So even the Queen at the time was just the head of state.
Was ceremonial.
But he was head of state.
Head
it's
of
like
state.
a monarchical system.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like a constitutional monarchy.
Exactly.
Was what we were operating until 1970. But Jawara was in effect in charge of the state, or of the government.
Absolutely.
Now, I think what was fundamentally problematic was that Gambia and most of the countries that failed didn't do a proper reset. Now, colonialism was not just political control. Colonialism was an infrastructure of exploitation.
Exploitation, yes.
Yeah, that's what it was. So the colonialism, the political administration of the colonial side was just to aid and abet the economic theft.
Exploitation, yeah.
Yes. So, and that's why when the colonialists came, they just don't preside over the political system. They also try to twitch the economic system such that it's built to help their industrial revolution.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So when the greater part of African leaders took over, they didn't do the reset. So for example, yesterday I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and I was telling him, people start to fantasize and think about going to mass when they are not hungry. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but when they are fed and they have a place to sleep, now Africans.
That's when they think about something.
That's when they think about something. That's when they become more productive. And so, when the colonialists came, most of Africa was focusing on cultivation of food crops and things that we just eat.
Yeah, that's right.
So that, but they introducing cash crops and all these things. So, our agriculture became very dependent
on their market.
Yeah. And so they control us both economically and politically.
Yeah.
So when we took over from our own systems, we didn't do a reset so that we start from building our own productive base. That is not necessarily totally independent from the global economy, because we live in a global world, we can't be totally independent.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that has to be totally divorced from the global economical system,
order,
such that it's just us and our interests. And I think that fundamental change didn't happen at independence. And later on, even later on in the years, Jawara made some attempts. They made an attempt to invest in the agricultural sector, to diversify it, focus a lot on food production, but it never really took off significantly. And then you came to the era of Jammeh and Barrow, which had realizes the petty politics of what they call infrastructural development, which is actually aided and abetted by corruption, massive theft. That's why they go into construction. You could see, look at the debt under Jammeh and Barrow. Yeah, and tell me the source of those debt. It's incredible level of construction, poorly made constructions that have gone to made millions of people, maybe tens of people rich, millionaires. Some of whom don't even have
So you mean
construction companies.
This twaddle about building roads and infrastructures was actually underneath, it was a source of corruption.
Yes, that's why they focused. And look, when Jammeh came, one of the things they came, Jammeh Commission is here to show us what happened. That's why I said, for me, one of the biggest problems we had when Jammeh fell was that we focused too much on investigating Jammeh instead of focusing too much on investigating the entire system, so that we had the diagnostics of what happened. And that's why this Barrow system is good also, in that it's showing us now what this system is really about, right? And this system is an oppressive system that has been built by colonialists, and it still has all the artifacts, it's not a democracy, it's a pseudo-democracy with all colonial artifacts that has built it. It's colonialists who build this system the way it is. And we're continuing with that same, yes. And so that is why I think we are retarded, and we've not put too much thinking into it. So when we start the conversation, most people who are in government and they are privileged consider this an assault on themselves, and so they become they push back, and they started dehumanizing and attacking individuals who are calling for a reset. But really, I think one of the issues why we are where we are is that we didn't have a proper reset, and we didn't think through what we currently have.
Okay, Madi, let's go now to look at these things. Well, leadership, we said, as a guidance is essential and very important in nursing a young nation that is coming. Sadauda Jawara had the privilege of presiding over the embryonic days of the country. Did he do very well? Did he do well in general aspects of development?
Well, certainly he did not do well. But we must say that is after having read the Karaba, I mean the book, where Jawara poured out his ideas, his dreams, his vision. It appeared to me he understood what should be done and where we were and how we should go. So in terms of visioning, I think Jawara had a vision. Yes.
Sorry about this.
But now to practicalize that vision, was where the shortcoming was.
I see. So he had a vision after all, because most of the criticisms that his predecessors, rather his successors, peddled against his legacy was that he had no vision.
No, Jawara had a vision to industrialize the Gambia, to also even understand in terms of agriculture what should be the priority and which areas of the Gambia should focus on what aspects of crops, and so on. And in terms of decentralizing development, because Jawara recognized that, observed the distorted nature of our development, how everything was concentrated in the Greater Banjul area, and his desire to see development spread across the country, and the potentials there. So I think he had a vision, and I must say, when I read the book, I put the book down and must have spent about an hour reflecting, both with anger and appreciation. That because not just Gambia, but Jawara even had a Pan-Africanist perspective, and I've seen in that book how he spoke, so well, understanding the vision of Nkrumah. And the need for African unity. Yes. And so I was like, but then Jawara, why didn't you get closer to Nkrumah, all those even more, and pursue those Pan-Africanist policies, visions, and so on. So I think that was there, but then
maybe Nkrumah was far more radical than he was.
Well, maybe Jawara too, given his demeanor, the kind of person
he was too much of a British boy.
Okay, but he was a typically cultured Gambian boy. If you read his biography, and so maybe that radicalism, and would think probably things would take gradual step. So I think he was a gradualist, let me say. But time doesn't wait for that. So that and then of course the control, because I think Jawara eventually lost control as the government became highly inefficient, and corruption. We can recall all the way back in the 70s, Dixon Colley reporting about corruption. In the 80s, Tixmane reporting about corruption. In the 90s, Dela Hadda reporting about corruption. And the 2000s, Republic here reporting about corruption. But during his time, that 70s, 80s, and part of the 90s, so the leadership was missing, that effective, accountable leadership, to make sure not just him being that kind of a leader. I think Jawara was a very honest, decent person. Yes, I would say so. But then it was not enough for you to be a person who is honest and decent as a leader. That value needs to spread across. That objective, that standard needs to cut across. And you have to create the necessary institutional structures and enforce them. You know, so I think that's where Jawara's failure has been or was, and I think that also explains, therefore, the failure of the Gambia over the period. You know, I read the PPP book written by Hassan Jallow, the current Chief Justice, Voice of the People, you know, and I was pleasantly surprised in the book that Jawara had, the cabinet had a code of conduct for cabinet ministers. Yes, so that in many ways, I've seen, and probably that is why people say Gambia Civil Service was the best at the time. I've seen instruments like codes like that. I've seen reports, forms that capture some detail, and to tell you, okay, there was some understanding here, but how they have failed to really maintain that, strengthen that, so that if that was the case, I think by 1994. If Gambia was not at the level of Singapore, I mean, we should be very close. And Jawara himself probably would not have been there. And, you know, Singapore's first president, Lee Kuan Yew, I think I'm making a lot of reference to Singapore simply because we all got independence the same year.
Jawara himself or his government made a lot of reference and comparisons.
So Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew from 65, you know, stepped down in 1990, right? And I read his book, like this book I referred to. And he said, I've said, you know, he's opened it that way. I've seen books written about how to cook, to teach somebody how to cook, how to build a house, how to create a, you know, bench or something. But he said, I have never seen a book about how to build a nation. And so he said, me, as a 42-year-old man, I had never thought Singapore would be given to me to govern. And then found himself Singapore, and he laid out the demographics. He said Chinese-speaking people there, Indian-speaking people from the Dutch Indies, and so on. I mean, just the diversity of it, and then you know, this island sort of one city sort of
city-state,
you know, all surrounded by what? How do I build this? You know, Singapore, like they said about the Gambia and Senegal, Singapore, in fact, in 1963, was forced to join Malaysia as a federation. At this Gambia, we were not forced to join Senegal, but Singapore had to join Malaysia, and it didn't work, and that is how 1965 they got out and gained their independence. So I think when he said nobody thought, I've never seen a book written about building a nation, but what did Lee Kuan Yew do? He realized the greatest resource they have is the people. So one is people. Let me invest in our people. All right. Education, housing, you know, discipline. All right. Two values. He said meritocracy. That this society, we are going to build it because if you got to hold a position, you have to merit it. You have to have the competence, the qualification to hold it. And of course, corruption. So Lee Kuan Yew was talking about corruption in 1965 as a key subject to combat corruption. You know, so these are the pillars that ultimately, of course, because it's such a nation, to also realize we cannot compete with Malaysia or China or India or UK in terms of industrialization. Even though Singapore is a highly industrialized country right now. But he said, look, given our context, we want to develop service sector, make Singapore a hub. So today, Singapore, out of all that Asian countries and in the world, whether it's shipping or IT or business, banking, you know, Singapore is a hub. Now, and our people here, they have talked about those kind of ideas.
Exactly.
Yes, I mean, they say Gambia is the closest to the West. I mean, you know, they will make it a hub to export trade. All those ideas were put out here.
Make it
but I think
supermarket of West Africa.
Yeah, so I think for us is the failure of leadership. Whilst Lee Kuan Yew and the Singapore leadership created values, identified values, and submitted themselves to those values and standards. You know, which is accountability. In our context, we didn't have that kind of leadership. You know, Jawara, I mean, imagine in 1984 when Tixmani exposed ministers for corruption. He promoted some of them.
Such ministers, like
3 ministers.
Sabali, Sabali,
So-
to his brother. Sabali was made vice president in '92. After that, I think Honorable Lamin Saho was also accused of.
Yeah, I was thinking Landin Jarasongo, but yeah, I mean,
it was not Landin. It was Lamin Saho and Sheikh Sabali.
I think there were 3. So that would not have happened under Lee Kuan Yew or in Singapore. I mean, he would have taken action on those ministers. But you can see that practice is what we still have here. I mean, how many reports from investigative journalists, from the Auditor General, from the National Assembly have come out, you know, implicating ministers? And you only promote them or redeploy them, or you say you send them to foreign service. Yes. I mean, and leadership, they say, makes or breaks society. And so the predicament of the Fourth Republic, really, I think fundamentally is a leadership problem. Yes, I think all of the other ingredients are available. What we needed was that leadership to organize, you know, as Mustapha said, no country is poor. The idea, that's why I'm always constrained, you know, to say Ghana is a poor country. We are impoverished. Our country is rich. Our people are impoverished. Yes, and you know, and that has to be something that we should deal with.
So it is the predicament we find ourselves today. You think can the Fourth Republic be blamed for that, or did we have an opportunity through the Second Republic, perhaps, or now, to change the entire thing, or we just merely follow?
So certainly the First Republic will have to take responsibility for the wrong trajectory until '94. But '94 was a huge opportunity to revive, not revive, but then to redirect the country. You know, as SFI would say, to turn around. You know, yes, which we messed up severely. You know, but certainly 1965 to 1994, a certain trajectory was instituted, you know, of corruption, of inefficiency, of lack of accountability. That really became very ingrained. So that by 1994, you know, of course, the option is we can either reverse, otherwise continue as usual. And either way, it would be painful for the country, because if we got to reverse, it will have to take very painful decisions, actions, because accountability wasn't really a culture, something we were accustomed to, you know, having come 30 years, you know, far in the PPP regime. So, but that was necessary. Now, if you don't, the way that trajectory was, if you continued on it, it can only aggravate. And this is why 1994 to 2017, a dictatorship was possible. You know, one, because there was already a path towards that, because even, you know, again, Jawara, because we have to speak to the facts, human rights violations were becoming a lot by the late 80s, early 90s. The NSS, you know, was engaged in torture. All right, and we saw how the NSS became the base, you know, for the NIA and you know, and stuff like that. So, so that if we had not done the reversal by 1994, but merely continued, the tendency for that to aggravate to a dictatorship we had was very prevalent. All right. Well, you know, almost inevitable, and that is what happened, which was further aggravated by the kind of, of course, it's a military regime. So either way, as long as it's a military regime, unless you have a military person of some level of political awareness, like Thomas Sankara, but somebody like Jammeh, who completely has no ideas and so on, no values, it is going to aggravate what we went through from '94 to date. And again, we have another opportunity, 2016, 2017, to make a reversal again. Yes, and apparently we have failed to do that. And so now I fear for the Gambia very much so, because we have to learn from lessons. You know, Jawara was easy going passing, I mean, you know, decent, nice, and all of that. But his regime, we saw the dictatorship, I mean, the corruption, and, you know, the disregard of the law, the lack of accountability, and it ended up in a military coup. And with a military that, I mean, lived on, I mean, survived on the very foundations provided by that previous regime. So that, you know, eventually, you know, with their own reality, it aggravated into such a violent regime. Now, so the immediate background to the current dispensation is a very violent reality. The immediate background to the Jammeh 94 scenario was not a violent reality.
I see.
You know what I'm saying? So people need to think about that. I mean, pre-94 wasn't violent. So to speak, right?
Except a few episodes.
Except 1981 happened, but even 1981, we've seen documentation, Jawara responding to concerns from Amnesty International about the state of human rights. So he was aware of those things to the best of his ability to limit it. All right. But now the background to the 2017 dispensation now is a very violent background. So meaning the vestiges, the attitudes, the experience is there. So for us to drop into, you know, another violent reality is very high. If the leadership is not there, and the leadership we have today, if it is not as weak as Jawara, probably weaker, and so on. So this is a concern for me. How do we make a reversal? This is why I am opposed to a third term also, because we have to, because self-perpetuation provides that opportunity. That fertile ground for things like that.
32 years, Jammeh 22.
Exactly. So we need to do a real critical analysis of our history and experience.
We will come to discuss debate forward how we go about. Mustapha, yes. Do we have the First Republic to blame for some of the shortcomings the shortfalls you described, that the country failed to, I mean, the advantages the country failed to capitalize on to make it the country we all desire? Or is it that we also missed out on what should have been the turnaround moments like 94 and 2017?
You see, my understanding is that had Jawara done what he was supposed to do, the level of decay we had under Jammeh would not have been possible. In fact, Jammeh would not have been possible himself. We could not have
a Jammeh government had a coup d'etat.
No, Jammeh was produced. He was created
from the.
It was created from the despair of the former government. Just as Barrow was created out of Jammeh.
So some security people said negligence of the government.
Yeah, well, and to start it at the beginning, I think that I agree with Madi that I believe that Jawara had an idea of what he was doing. And even if you look at the institutions that he tried to create, right?
He even created,
Yes, he created, let's say, for example, agricultural extension workers to help agriculturalists, agricultural school in Genoa, agricultural school in Genoa to teach NTCs, folks about agricultural related matters, NARI, all
the
NTCs
and
the NTCs, and so he was trying to create institutions upon which a genuine productive economy can be built. So that farmers are assisted this way,
the
agricultural development bank, so that there was funding available. He has an idea, MDI to train civil servants,
the community development.
College. So he has an idea. I mean, you have to give him that. But then the problem is that he was inefficient, and he presided. He was inefficient, and he also presided over a corrupt system. Now, and corruption.
He was too lenient,
and I think
often said, or is it you?
No, he was not lenient. No, he was not lenient, because leniency. A leader is not allowed to be lenient. It's not as if you are allowed to, because when you are in custody of public money. It's not your money. When Partey stole it, he did not steal your money. You cannot be lenient to forgive somebody on behalf of somebody. That is not lenience.
That's right.
That is corruption in itself. You cannot forgive
or
for
condoning
somebody.
it.
Yes, even in Islam, you're not allowed to forgive for anybody. People, the Gambian people, president cannot say I forgive you. He cannot, because it's not his money you stole.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So Jawara cannot be lenient.
But you know, there are in many aspects the president, they said, have prerogative to extend mercy and stuff like
those
that.
are, we can go into that. In fact, there are a lot of people who are against those kind of
I'm against prerogative of mercy.
Exactly.
That's
a lot of
what it
people
is.
are, because it's an exercise of a right that you don't have.
Yes.
You know, it's my money they've stolen. In Islam, you don't have that.
Yes.
Yeah, in Sharia, you cannot forgive for another person. You know, now,
It's only
and I think we underestimate what corruption does in a society. I think corruption is the most fundamental thing that kills any government, any society, and that's why we grossly underestimate its impact. Corruption starves the government of money to be able to implement whatever ideas are available. That's the first impact.
That's the first impact.
Right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. You can have an idea on how to send a man to the Mars, or the moon. Without money, you cannot do it.
Yes.
There is no government that can operate without money. There is no government, however great your ideas are, that is going to be able to implement without the resources. And if you ask Jawara or any other of our presidents, what is your biggest impediment? Lack of resources. But the problem is that is why they say, in fact, lack of resources is, how do they call it? When you said lack of resources, it's like saying, it's a statement of fact that is continually in existence. Like it's like so universe is never ending.
Exactly.
Right? So if you said the universe is big, it's not big, it's still expanding.
Yes.
So if you said there is no resources, there is never resources.
Never.
Because no matter how much resources you have, the human need continues to stretch.
Exactly.
Now, but the problem is not how much resources you have. The problem is how you utilize it. Now, corruption, what it does is that it starves you from even the ability to be able to adequately utilize the limited resources there is. Now, so when it does, it starves the government from implementing any ideas. And that is that's why they said we are a poor country. And what that does, it breeds laziness. And it created a culture of begging. Right? And so begging kills creativity, and that's why Madi was telling you, when you take somebody into Kunta Kinte Island, for example, that's the premise of dead aid. It's not just that it breeds mismanagement or teaches people corruption, but it also kills creativity. Because when you leave Gambians if you close this door and you leave Gambians in Gambia and nobody comes to help, we will survive. You will come here in the next 50 years, you'll find a way. We will have to find a way. Because human ambition is like water, you can't contain it it's going to burst its way out.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, it breeds inefficiency, right? And one of the things that also does is that when this happens, then the society becomes poor. Right? So you have a grossly unequal society, such that by the midway 2015 around or thereabout, before the end of the Jammeh regime, I read a report that says the Gambia Multidimensional Poverty and Inclusive Growth Report was saying that a child, say for example, a child born in my village, Saliken, is 3 times likely to be poor than a child born in Banjul. Look at it's a grossly poor country, but also grossly unequal.
Inequality, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of inequality, you have half of the population in poverty. So, for example, the recent report says 53% of the population is in poverty. So, to appreciate that is to say 53%. You know, the poverty rate in the Gambia is not measured as, say, poverty rate in China. Poverty rate in Gambia is measured as $2 a day. So, for example, $2 a day is 150.
That's about a little bit over 170
plus $70, $140.
$140.
Okay, so think about it. over half of the Gambian families, let's say 5 in every 10 you meet on the street, gets to live on 140 a day.
That's a day.
Think about it. How much can 140 get you?
Absolutely nothing.
That's the point. Now you created a society that is like that, and so under Jawara, all these things. There was he was presiding over a volcanic eruption that is deep down underground. It's trying to force its way out. It's like a dictatorship. Dictatorship suppresses anger. One day it just blows up on your face, and people say there is war. There is no war.
When
there has been war all along.
Gradually, yes.
Yeah? So people have been angry. People have been frustrated. People are starving. They're seeing the privileged class. The elites are squandering the resources. They are taking prime lands. They are allocating it to themselves. They are stealing public money. They are building it. They are still sending their children to universities. Jame, and somebody says at the TRRC, Jame told our children, you guys, your parents are able to give you bread and meat. And he said Jame was jealous. I said no, Jame was not jealous. The money you are using to buy bread and meat for your children is Jame's money. And he saw it, and he knew, how am I unable to be able to have meat and bread? And this guy has, and he is Gambian and I'm Gambian. And he is getting this bread and meat from my resources. This is what created Jame. He was created out of the grudges. And they said, no, he was jealous. He was not jealous. You did not invent an iPhone. So you are not any as hardworking than any farmer in the North Bank region, because you didn't invent an iPhone. You are being paid from taxpayers' resources.
Exactly, yeah.
You're not any better than a farmer. Right? Now, so the elites became divorced from the society. It's like Kenyo Chebe says, they live in a country, but they are not there.
They are not there.
Yeah, it's like the president right now, trapped in a bubble, or like the information minister telling you onion is $500.
Wow, well,
so he's not. He's
$400.
Yeah, so you created a bubble and you trap yourself inside it, such that you don't want to hear anything that inconveniences the ear.
Yes, that's right.
So it's a make-believe reality. The politicians continue to live it, and so when they did that, but they are unaware there is a real volcano that is underneath the soil, and this is going to blow up on the surface. That is why when Jame came, that's why I said Jawara created Jame. When Jame came, nobody knew Jame. My dad was supporting Jame. He doesn't know him. You know why he was supporting Jame? Because he was aggrieved with Jawara.
He was NCP.
So when Jame came, even in the military, they don't know him.
Yes.
People who were on the street celebrating were not celebrating Jame's coming. They were celebrating Jawara's exit.
Downfall, yes.
So the people were desperate. It's the same thing that happened in 2017. Nobody knows Barrow. People were not celebrating the coming of Barrow. They were celebrating the exit
downfall
of Jame.
Yeah, that's true.
And you could see, and that is why you could see, we have not been able to take our time to consciously even change our presidents. We only do so
through force or some cause. That's what he said.
No, in a desperate circumstance.
Yes, that's right.
Such that we don't even care to know who is coming.
In fact, in Jame's case, it eventually nearly become, it ended in force. Because he was never going to go. There was no threat of force.
Exactly. So this is the kind of situation. I think Jawara created an unequal society, a grossly poor, underprivileged, inefficient society, corrupt society, such that the elites and the elites are there and the rest of the society is there.
Then came Jame.
Yes. Then that economic factor was what created Jame. And that's why he came with all those anger and all and he was taking people to. It's the same anger that Jame had that folks have on the street right now.
So well, when he came, of course, comparatively, his regime had there is nothing to write home about his in terms of what we have been described about Jawara.
No, I think comparatively, even economically, Jawara did better. I think comparatively, even with ideas, every other thing, Jawara has a sense of what he was doing. Now, Jame is a gangster economist. When he came, he realizes the Gambian people badly needed to see structures in place. They wanted this country transformed in a radical way. They wanted to see. So he went so much into structures. Yeah. So he went so much, and Jammeh was also corrupt. So he went so much into structures. I mean, he went into construction, large-scale construction. That is the thing all incompetent leaders do.
I mean,
Two things
they
incompetent
argue,
and corrupt leaders share in common is roads and houses. Because it's one thing nobody needs to think to do. You don't need...
And it is the cheapest thing to do.
Yes.
Because the money is there. You can go to supplementary appropriation. You can put it in the budget. You can take a loan and grant. A lot of our roads are funded that way. You know,
but then they will argue that these roads and these buildings are needed also. They call it development.
They are needed. Certainly, but the issue is the process, and we can even say the objective, because I don't think their objective is necessarily because this is needed by the country for the economic development as economic drivers, but I think the objective, as Mustapha highlighted earlier, is the corruption, because it is one way to divert.
For the optics, people to say they have
exactly.
Make them electorally acceptable.
So if you go to military regimes, I was in Sierra Leone when Strasser was there. For example, if you go to Nigeria or as well, and even Ghana, it's one of the things such regimes do. To get into this capital-intensive infrastructure, because it is visible, it is there. So there isn't a system to govern and develop the country, because that is the issue. What system do you have to ensure economic development, economic opportunities are available, all right, to ensure that institutions are efficient, effectively running, to ensure there is impact in terms of the policies that you create. Now, if you don't deal with that, you can build multiple roads and other buildings,
and people,
but it will make a difference in the lives of the people.
You will see the appreciation.
Exactly.
You will wonder why people are not appreciating.
So, for example, when you look at the coastal road that Jammeh built, it's necessary to have a coastal road.
The Combo Coastal Road.
Combo Coastal Road, right? And it opened up that part of the country. But after years to now, you realize it hasn't critically changed the socio-economic life in Gunjur or Katong or Sanyang and all the villages around. All right, you and I may have our capital, and we go and build a nice house in Gunjur. People do open your business at the beach. That happens. But fundamentally, the road has not triggered wealth creation across the Combo areas, simply because you just don't need that road. You need that road, but you need good governance. You need transparency. You need accountability. You need policies, programs that are implemented in a way that Tanje, you may be and so like me, you've been going to Tanje, the fish park down there over the years. When you go there, you realize 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, practically this place hasn't changed. The women you see there selling, they're still in poverty. Right, because you need a lot more than just to say this is a landing site, fish landing site, we'll build a cold store here. Yes, a cold store is a structure they need, and a road is a thing they need. But beyond that, what have you done further? And in terms of your institutions to serve the needs of those women, that has been the missing link, even during Jawara's time. So that when you look at Jawara, in some sense, and again you can see the difference. Jammeh rushed and built a TV station, built a university, all right, and even an airport over there.
Terminal.
But we just stagnated. Debt only increased, poverty increased, and all of these problems. But look at Jawara. Jawara didn't build a university or a TV station, but Jawara thought we don't need a university. What we need is an MDI. We need a GTTI. We need a Gambia College. We need an RDI. We need NARI. So we need those institutions, which they may not be called a university, like nominally. But when you look at it,
they basically
essentially they are universities.
What we need.
And these are what we need. You build that local capacity and so on. So as Mustapha said, when you look at it in all areas, Jawara had a vision.
Yeah.
Yes. Now his failure is that MDI should not have been just where it is right now, or GTTI. GTTI should have been producing our technologists, our scientists. Probably through GTTI we should have been manufacturing our laptops today. Our phones. All right. I read Nkrumah when he set up the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi. He said these are the ones to build our technologies. I mean our gadgets and things. And that university created the first traffic light in Kumasi, the city of Kumasi. All right. So how could Jawara make MDI make our civil service even more efficient, more productive? Because civil service, ultimately, national development is based on the civil service.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at Gambia College, whether it's education or whether it's School of Agriculture
or health.
Or health. How have the School of Health helped to create what Americans have called a Centers of Disease Control, to study our society in terms of diseases, create medicines, and so on? How could our agriculture have really equipped our farmers? We shouldn't be sitting here having farmers come from Taiwan or Indonesia or China giving us this variety or that variety. How could we have done that? And I have read other accounts and listen to other people. I think Uncle Baksture probably talking about the story of the Ndama cattle and the role Jawara played in terms of through the ITC and so on.
Exactly.
So when you look at it, a lot of things were present during the Jawara era.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the quality of leadership to transform these ideas and these institutions to make the fundamental difference in our lives is what could not happen until 1994 came. And because it did not happen, so we were stagnating. We were circulating around, and that creates, therefore, is all the poverty, the deprivation. So when you talked about Jame saying those children were having this, yes, I mean, I would be angry. You would be angry. And I've been many workshops, meetings in the Gambia over the past 35 years. And I tell them, look, to show you the injustice of our system, I am from Boraba. My father sent me to school. All I know my father do is farming and playing the Quran, And I graduated. Within 5 years, I became richer than my father, who has been, on the farming land 70 years. Now, how is that possible? He is farming. He produces groundnuts. He produces rice. He's a farmer. He should be wealthy. But do we have the necessary systems, laws, institutions in place to transform his farming to become a wealth creation enterprise and not just to be in that perpetual, perennial poverty that, he lived all his life, which is the case about many other people. So talking about this, I'm in a WhatsApp group, for example. Information came there about somebody in Balangar in the present day. Sent his groundnuts to the SECO and, 2 weeks cannot be paid. One, he has to have a Q money app or something like that,
on his,
right? And then even there, that there's no money in the bank. Now who is deciding that?
Well,
all right. Now the minister or the director who will go to Balangar or go to all these places is driving some $12 million vehicle or some Dalasi vehicle or some $3 million Prado. Yeah, I understand. And so their children see these children coming out of these vehicles going to school. They will be aggrieved, because at the end of the day, we are all equal in this society.
Exactly.
Yes. So how can, and this is why I confront my friends, say, from Banjul. All right. Say, look, what's the difference between Banjul and Boraba? Yes, Banjul is the capital city, but in this Gambia, we are all equal. We are all communities. So how can we have electricity supply, in Boraba, in Banjul, roads paved in Banjul, and the roads in Boraba are not paved, and electricity is not in Boraba, and other services. Now you cannot tell me because this one is a capital. No, it is not. So that inequality generates grievance.
Yeah, and in terms
And that is tangible.
and in terms of salaries, that's equality.
Many ways.
Somebody told me the last time, okay, you look at this. Somebody who paid for his education and obtained a master's degree today, or maybe a PhD, is paid less than 40,000. Somebody who was in the street yesterday, joined politics, was elected or appointed, he's earning 150,000 per month.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
Yeah.
And,
Look at the irony.
The last time I checked, I had the consultants at the hospital. Consultants are these the doctors, the major doctors.
Yes, yes.
They earn, I think, around 90,000. I think
A month.
Yeah.
All right.
I think far less.
Yeah,
far less than.
So I think, Jam, therefore, our society, and I see a lot of fanfare about independence, and even a so-called national dialogue being organized.
Yes, there's going to be a national dialogue. We are committed to that.
Yeah, but I think our leaders, our technocrats, all right, and all of us need to recognize that this society is a very unjust, unequal, unfair society. And that alone is a threat to national security. That is a threat to national unity. That is a threat to national development. We have failed to establish a dispensation based on justice and equality, and so on.
Yeah.
And that is not just in terms of, words, but, in terms of access to services, in terms of access to opportunities, in terms of availability of goods, and so on. The disparities are so huge. I mean, where you have a bunch of Gambians think that only to go through the Sahara Desert and the high seas is the way to make, to get out of some hopelessness. It's a matter that should really prick all of us to say, look, we need to have a conversation. Why should a Gambian person feel so desperate, so hopeless, that knowing all the risks, still thinks that he will take money or she will take money and go by the back way? Now, that is a matter that we need to look at, and we cannot just brush it aside as people are, crazy, or people are, stupid, or something like that, right? And so, if we don't deal with those kinds of things, we are not helping our society. Yes, we are not helping our society. And I think, when we got to a day like this or a period like this, and we said it's independence, fine. We really need to look at the health and the strength of the society in terms of the very lives, the very circumstances, the very realities of the people. Yes, it is not a matter that one minister would come and sit here and tell us, bag of onion was $500, or bag of rice has reduced. That, because even if a bag of rice is $500, that's too expensive for most Gambians.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is not something to brag about, or to tell us. I saw the Minister of Information, trumpeting the Transparency International standing or ranking for the Gambia. That, therefore we are making right again. I mean, at the same time, the Auditor General just released the 2020 audit report. I mean, you read that, you wonder, does this country have law? Does this country have educated people who are running our finances, and so on? So I think we are still, we say national dialogue, but we are diverting the issue. And our intellectuals, our politicians, our journalists, our civil society actors and businesses, everyone, I think we need to be honest and speak to the issues, than attempting to sugarcoat or divert or disinform, which has become the norm now, perpetrated by the government itself. If at the same time they talk about combating disinformation.
Yeah,
yes.
that's what they said.
Honestly.
Okay,
I was just going to say something, just for clarity's sake. Like, I didn't say that building roads is not a good thing, right? It's a very important thing.
Yeah.
But just even note also that even the mere building of road can be a political gesture, and not necessarily for economic purposes. So, for example, there is a certain road that does not generate economic value so as to warrant priority.
And,
Do you see what I
then
mean?
it
Now,
could
yes,
even
even
be
in the
favoritism.
construction of a road, because building a country is not, it's not an isolated thing. Building a country is, what is the artist who says full package? You know, it's a full package. You know, so it's like it's building an economy. That's what building a country is.
Exactly.
It's building a survival for a people.
Yeah.
So you have to sit down and think about building that survival in a methodical way. So it's not like you just get up and say, yeah, these guys, I went to the campaign, they said they need a road, we'll build it. And when we build that road, we'll have more votes. That's politics, that's not economic development, right?
Exactly.
So you can build a road, that doesn't necessarily mean you are doing well.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And building a road is easy, you don't even need to think. Building a road, you just need to identify a place and raise money however way you can and go and build a road. It's the least the state can do. Now, but the reason why I mentioned this specifically and construction specifically is because you have to review Janneh Commission. And so far what has been happening on the Darboe. Take for example the Arch 22.
Yeah.
Janneh just went and took millions of dollars from Taiwanese government and came. And that is how he started all the hospital projects.
Yeah.
It took no effort. You just go to some government and they give you $35 million. And you came. You expand the airport. You build Arch 22. Arch 22 cost $1 million.
Yeah. The time there was a lot of money.
Yes, that's a lot of money at that time.
Yeah.
Arch 22 alone. And who did he give constructions of hospitals to? Go and find out. It's some guy who does not even have a construction company. He created a construction company and he awarded him a contract.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This is how they make millionaires.
Yeah.
Right? And we know that guy, a former lawyer, or still a lawyer, has been before the commission. So this is how they make friends. They make friends rich.
Exactly.
You see, so that Janneh, you see, I get people to think about this, and that's why I think Madi was right. We're not honest people, because honest people would sit down and think about their problem. So if you have a country that is borrowing and is not able to pay, and you hear a term called debt distress, that country is poorly managed. How? Because when you take money, you are supposed to invest. When you invest, you're supposed to generate profit. Indeed. If you are investing, if a country is unable to pay its debt on time and in a way that it's going into debt distress, that country is not investing. Because when it's investing, it's going to generate return on its investment, and that is why it's not going to even be in debt trap. It wouldn't be. Yeah. So part of the reasons why a country goes in debt trap is mismanagement and poor investment choices. So for example, you build a road and this road is not generating economic activity to be able to service its loan. That goes into a bad debt, right? Yeah. Right? Because that debt cannot be paid. Because that debt you have to, it's like what we are doing with NAWEC. Why did they say NAWEC is a dead weight on the shoulders of the taxpayers? Why? Because NAWEC is insolvent. We are taking state money, we are taking debt, we are giving it to NAWEC. NAWEC is not sufficient to even generate revenue for its own self, let alone pay that debt. Yeah. So NAWEC is like a leaking ball. Yeah. So the economy cannot be built like a leaking ball. When it's invested, it needs to be able to get a return. Yes. Yeah. So that is, even for road construction, you just don't get up and build a road. You have to think about the whole package, the economic value of it. How much economic activity is this going to generate? How much money is this going to raise for the government? So that we are able to pay this debt on it. Right? That's the first part. Yeah. The second part is that in building an economy, you have to prioritize revenue generation measures. So for example, one of the biggest burden on the Gambian economy is food. Yeah, we are unable to get enough rice for ourselves. We are told we consume around 200,000 tons or more. Yeah. And we generate only around 46,000 tons the last time I checked, right? So what are you doing with that? The last time I heard Barrow saying is supporting some private sector. I think this is bullshit. I personally think that that's not going to help us. Because maybe, of course, other people have their own ideas, but I think that Gambia government itself should put its money in it. there are a lot of people who have problems with that because they think that state cannot do business. But I have a different view. But that's not part of the. Maybe that's a too much a conversation to go into. But then you have to prioritize that so that you can reduce your budget deficit. You're going to be able to kill two birds with one stone, like Barrow said one time, one bird with two stones. That's a waste of stone actually. But then you can also make your people you can feed them. You can get economic progress and you can feed your people. So it's not just building road, and also the quality of road. Look at some of the roads these people are building. I mean, you go around
all of them.
But I mean, this road, they started, even this road, they started building and they editing it along the way as they are going. I mean, what kind of a road is that? You have to plan something before you do it. You don't plan after you start doing it. Now, and you go to Latrikunda. Last time I checked, I went to see my mom at Latrikunda and I was leaving, and behind the market I saw somebody, they had these round blocks, and I took a picture of it and I shared on Facebook. I was making fun of it on Facebook, and the contractor said, "Wait until we've done everything." And this is the same thing. You see, Banjul. Can you believe that we spent 14 million United States dollars? 14 million United States dollars in building the roads in Banjul, and it was supposed to be roads, sewages, and roads, sewages, and
drainage.
Drainages. Yeah. Right? But the drainages, they were just clearing it and putting covers on it. Right? We all know this. And the National Audit Office has talked about this now. Think about it. Where do you think that money went? And I can tell you, do you know where the waste in Banjul goes?
To where?
The waste in Banjul. They pump it in
into the river.
They pump it right behind State House. Yeah. Where those people are swimming. Raw poop from Banjul.
Sewage. Sewage.
Yes. Banjul sewage is not treated. Raw poop from Banjul is poured inside.
Back to the ocean.
The pipe used to be a kilometer long, but it was broken sometime in the past. And when it was broken around 40 meters into the sea. At some point, the thing that holds it onto the ground inside the water was broken. At some point, the pipe was floating.
My goodness.
And pumping poop. You could
sewage
see it right from the and that was not part of this project. So this
one would have thought that it would have been.
When I said construction, roads, this is the kind of examples I'm talking about. Now, and that's the whole thing, and that's what Jammeh did. Think about it. When Jammeh was coming to power, our debt was 4 billion. Still significant, but this is even a compilation, considering the debt had gone down after the ERP. But then it started accumulating again. When Jammeh was leaving, the debt was 58 billion. Right? 4 billion to 58 billion.
That's colossal.
And then, how much was Jammeh's wealth? 58 billion. Jammeh himself, according to OCCRP, which was also documented using evidences before the Jammeh comes in, even though Gambia government Jammeh government said he was worth 360 something million, but OCCRP claimed he was worth $1 billion, which was at the time he was leaving exactly 58 billion dollars, because the dollar to dollars at the time Jammeh was leaving was 58. Right? How did Jammeh amass all that wealth?
Interesting.
Right? So all those things are part of and you see his friends are rich.
Absolutely.
They created construction companies. There is a road here that is being built. The owner, they are renting, you go to there, they are renting equipment from an existing company to come and work there.
They do a lot of
what
that.
does that tell you? The person who is giving the contract
don't have the materials.
Exactly.
That's what they do.
If you check, you would have seen that person must be connected to somebody. But if you say these kind of things, you have our people, they come out blatantly, and it's so
interesting.
And it's shameful, the indignity of it. Because why would you lie? Like, what reason would anybody have
you talk
to
about
just lie, especially about things that are apparent?
Good. You talk about
It's needless.
You talk about NAWEC. Not long ago, Madi, you raised issues with the social security. I mean, social security has been so much maligned on the Jammeh for just been opening up. Jammeh himself been maligned for opening up people's pensions. For anybody to come and just cash in and go.
Yeah.
You've been writing passionately this week about the social security management and government. I mean, government, the auditors, the parliamentarians indicated to the social security management that you took 9.8 million euros to buy buses, and then now you can't get that money back. And the social security chairman of the board and the management said, yes, we have been after government to get the money back. You wrote a lot about that and said, how do you compare it? In fact, you said that is
I'm robbery.
armed robbery. You call it armed robbery.
Yeah, I saw it.
But at least nobody was armed on this occasion. So how do you see that kind of, because this is what had been happening according to the Jana Commission in terms of social security. I mean, there was no control. Presidential order, presidential directive, money goes.
Yeah. No, Cham, I saw the independence theme marching in solidarity. I think for self-reliance and so on. Our people have to be honest to themselves and to the people. So that from Barrow himself to his cabinet, to all those people involved, what do you understand the state of this country as it is now? All right. Do you think this country is on a path, is being governed according to the laws of the Gambia, the constitution and the laws of the Gambia? Because if that were the case, this social security situation should not have arisen to the point that we have a body like social security and our whole Ministry of Finance arguing, about money that belongs to workers. That who you did not consult to do this. But again, Cham, I'll urge all Gambians to go and read the Auditor General's report. All right. So that this is the same story. Public institutions, whether it's NAWEC or GAMTEL or GAMCEL, government comes and give them loans and they wouldn't pay back. In the first place, why would government give a loan to NAWEC or social security, or to GAMCEL or any other public enterprise, if you understand the very purpose, the very rationale for
money for themselves?
Exactly.
But they always argue that they also need to provide service. So
but look, every public enterprise should operate like an enterprise. There's nothing that says you cannot operate like an enterprise because you are created like an enterprise. If GAMCEL, we are talking about GAMCEL. If QCell and AfriCell, are still running. Nobody said GAMCEL you cannot charge this much.
Especially if you are backed by the state.
There are a lot of I'm sure costs that AfriCell or QCell would pay. GAMCEL wouldn't pay that. All right, and so on. So why would GAMCEL not make profit?
Is it also the attitude of the public? The workers, Gambian workers who are working in public think that this is government, so let me do what I like. Whereas AfriCell and QCell, you can do that because management will be on top of you.
So it goes back to the elected and appointed public officials. You are elected or appointed into public office to run it according to law. And that disregard of the law, that lawlessness, that is what has been permeating through our state, practically since independence, in fact, to the point that, he just talked about the Banjul roads. I was in Banjul last week, driving, and some streets I see the road is peeling off. Because concrete, who would go and build concrete in your city, your capital city for that matter? So the roads in Banjul, no road markings, no traffic lights, no vegetation, the drainage, as you said. No beautification whatsoever. And you went to spend in Gambian Dalasi, I think it's like 2 billion or something. That is scandalous. But again, the Auditor General, they've talked about this. About it.
Exactly.
They've reported about it. And many other places. You look at these OIC roads. The poor quality of them, until now, You don't know whether when was phase 1 or when was phase 2. Now they're talking about phase 3, when that is going to come. But check all the OIC roads. Suguta, go to Bundum, go to Talinding, Kanifing, and all the OIC roads. Concrete slab after concrete slab. You'll find open gutters. You'll find roads built in a way only to inconvenience businesses, to kill businesses, and constrain pedestrians, people moving around. Now, you sit down and wonder, have people sat down around a table to imagine what kind of Gambia they want to build?
Think about it.
Yes. And the resources are here. We are not poor. All right? You have the resources, and you go and give us these poor, quality products. And I have no doubts this bad hardened way. In 5-10 years time, you will see that they'll be knocking down some part of it, because it's inconvenience. It's like the Banjul Westfield Mandinaba route. Yeah. Again, huge amount of money. You wonder, do you have a master plan? Do you visualize, if Serakunda is our main hub, what kind of road do we need to build? That road would be now the artery, that would connect every other road to facilitate business and movement and trade and commerce and, security and, life itself. Yeah. Now, you have no thinking of that. You just build this big road that is a huge inconvenience, and for now a decade or so is what we have. And Serakunda remains the same. So it's like Mustapha said, they just get up. Okay, so Bundung highway is a big problem. It's deteriorated to the point you cannot imagine. Okay, let's go and fix it. And they go and build any kind of road that this is not going to last. Number 2, it is not a road that a modern city requires. So what is happening in terms of that area, or in terms of social security situation? All right, it all points to the lawlessness in the state. And that is what is accounting for the poverty, the deprivation, the inequality, the lack of opportunities for our country. So they have not harnessed all of the resources that exist in this country, the potentials in this country, which would have created wealth. And so if you have done that, Cham, I have no doubts that Gambia would have been at the same level with Singapore today. We would be producing our laptops today. Gambian vehicles, we would manufacture our own vehicles. What is stopping us from doing that? Yeah, God did not say only Americans and Japanese and Germans should manufacture vehicles and planes.
No way.
No. We just have to put ourselves to it. But we do not have the leadership that is thinking in terms of that, to see how do we build capacity in this country. And to build capacity in this country has to be lawful. Yes, has to be lawful, has to be visionary. Has to be based on very strong values of accountability and transparency.
Indeed.
Which is lacking in at this moment.
And talking about transparency, we now turn our attention to the latest work of the Republic. Mustapha here, well known now for investigative journalism, since he established the Republic after Malagan, they've been making a lot of exposes in terms of economy and infrastructure and management in the country. The two latest, let's say, we deal with, because last time you were here, we had 2 since then. That is the minerals, and now we're talking now about...
The minerals is not public yet.
Not yet?
Yeah.
Well, when is that going to be made public?
Hopefully soon.
Good. So what is the latest one? Let's go straight in there.
It's the IOM, the Migration Reintegration Program that I have done with a colleague of mine, Joseph. Joseph is actually a Sierra Leonean journalist. Not Sierra Leone, he's from Czech Republic.
Wow.
But he came to Sierra Leone, he was there, was doing a good job. Then he came here, we were doing a joint story, then we decided to do this. This one works in such a way that I was just in a vehicle going to work, and there was this guy who was threatening violent. He thought, he's saying he was going to burn down IOM and all that stuff. He was so angry, and so I...
Was he a returnee?
Yeah, was a returnee. So I started to engage him to know what his problems were, and he said that they're frustrating migrants, they're doing this, they're doing that, and a lot of us have come and they promised we have our resources with them. They should have given us some money to go and start a business, but we haven't still get any money, and they keep turning and twisting us, and you know. So this was a big subject, that, as he said, and he told me they have a whole WhatsApp group, and I said, okay, I will be willing. I want to be in touch. So I gave him my number, and then I started speaking to migrants one at a time. By the time we interviewed around 43 to 45 people,
Gambians.
yes, Gambians, we realized how big the problem is, because as we were collecting receipts as well, those who have received help.
So were they entitled, these returnees, to certain help from the IOM, or is just voluntary on this part of
No, they were entitled to it, because IOM receives money from European Union.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
The money was meant to repatriate these migrants who are stranded on the route.
Yes.
Some are going to Libya. They are stuck in maybe Senegal, or stuck in Mauritania.
To help them
stuck
come back.
in Morocco, or stuck in Libya, or stuck in Agadez. So you are to help them to come back, and then help them to start something so that they don't return.
I see.
Now, but the problem with this is that there is a little thinking that goes into it. One is IOM has a huge, these people struggle to have access to their resources. And when they do have access to their resources, they are told, oh no, we only sponsor this amount of businesses. So for example, they will tell you car wash business, plumbing, poultry, fish business, this, that, and that. So they will list you and tell you anything outside of this we don't put our money.
We don't support.
So we get a lot of such testimonies.
Okay.
And so if you are to help me to set up a business, how do you get to decide for me what kind of business I should do?
No.
For it to be sustainable,
I should come with the business idea.
I should come with the business
Idea.
so that I know what my strengths are,
Yeah.
and what my weaknesses are, and you are not also doing any specialized training. So for example, if I said, okay, I'm going to do poultry, you're not going to take me to a 3-week course or 2 weeks course to understand poultry management. You're just going to give it to me. So that means you are setting up people for failure. So that is what they've been doing. So they restrict them into a choice of business, but then also they select, they have their own suppliers. So they have people who supply some of the things they give to migrants, or they support migrants too. So they don't give them cash.
I see.
They only tell you, okay, go to that supplier. That is if you agree. There are some who revolt and says, no, I'm not going to that supplier. I'm going to my own supplier. I know someone who is selling this. So when they go back and forth, they don't have a choice. They back down. But the overwhelming number of them go to their suppliers. And we've interviewed tons of them, around 43 or 45, who have receipts from poultry suppliers, other kind of suppliers. And these guys, they charge these people often above market prices, premium prices.
And what did the IOM Banjul office said about this?
Well, we wrote to them, and they sent us more like what you will hear from government. So some high-sounding intellectual response, which did not address the issues we have raised. So, for example,
generic comment.
Yes, generic comment. So because we didn't even understand how did you choose who gets? Some are getting 56,000. Some are getting 76,000. Some are getting 78. Some are getting 107. So how did you
determine who gets what?
On the same plane. So how did you determine? So they said, oh, it's choice of businesses. You know, but how do you give?
But how many people?
But there are the same people who choose the same businesses who still have different.
Well, how many people do you know? Because when you talk about the returnees, so I mean, it could be into hundreds.
It's into thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
So how big is this support?
Huge web. It's a huge web, because EU has dedicated millions of euros to this. So it's a huge scheme.
I see.
So some of these IOM suppliers have made a lot of money. I mean, I visited one of the shops, and I found some new stuffs where I just ordered from Dubai, because there is a market. There is a whole, I mean, imagine if your business is dependent on Gambian returnees. You know how many people are coming every month. So I mean, if you just have a straight supply, I mean,
So the problem is the IOM, instead of the entrepreneurs who they are helping, who select these shops. suppliers.
Yes, it's IOM suppliers. IOM,
Wow.
in fact, they are known in the communities where they are. Oh, this guy is an IOM
Supplier.
In fact, in some places, we've spoken to some migrants who tend to think that those guys are IOM officials. They don't even know they are not. You know, but these guys are suppliers, and these guys are not even big players in their industry. So, for example, it's not like the guy who is supplying poultry is a major poultry businessman. It's not.
So the beneficiaries are compelled to go and buy from the suppliers.
Yes.
By the IOM.
Yes. So, but they don't give them cash. They give
They
cash
condition
directly
them.
to those businesses.
I see.
They give cash directly to those,
businesses.
So
Is
those
that
businesses,
is that a way of trying to avoid waste or misappropriation by the beneficiaries?
I think their idea was that one, some of the beneficiaries, when you give them money,
Cash.
when you give them cash, they don't go into
Yes,
business.
they'll go into something.
Or two, some of them, if you give them cash, they may return. But the problem is that these are returnees. They are voluntary returnees. They are not people you bundle in a plane, and they are the people who walk to IOM and say we want to go home.
I see.
So if they accept to come now, I mean, so
But
for us, we didn't see much. And after the story, a lot of folks who have reached out to me, some of whom have worked previously for IOM, and some of them have told me this issue has been going on for a long time, and they are aware of it. I mean, they've done their own assessments that have come out with the same kind of results.
Wow.
Yes, because I have spoken to, in fact, there is a young man who is currently doing an assessment on a similar project, and he told me the same thing. So I think that it's a subject matter that they themselves are aware of, and this cannot be faked, because the business, the rates that these people are giving, you can get it. Like, for example, a bag of feed is a cost in the Gambia between the most expensive bag.
That is chicken feed.
Chicken feed is 2,500. That's the most expensive I know. Where you can get it for 2,400. So a supplier for IOM who supplies at least 18 bags for each migrant gets one feed for 2,400, and he sells it to migrants for 2,750. So he makes 350 on each feed. So if he is supplying 10 migrants, how much does he make?
Yeah, that's
a lot of money. And if you had you given that money directly to the migrant, that means he's going to save 350 on each feed he buys. And that money, 350 would, so for example, a broiler most expensive will cost you around 75. The most expensive. The list is 73. So how many broilers can you get on the profit that the guy placed on the bag of feeds?
$300 is something. Yeah.
So you can get around 4 or 5 small chicks.
But don't you think the IMF had a valid?
It's a profiteering scheme which is exploitative for the migrants.
Well, you think the IOM may have a valid point in that if you give cash to the beneficiaries, like you said, they might be tempted to go back.
Yeah, but it's their money.
With the money.
It's their money.
But if they go back with that money, you have only facilitated what you are trying to prevent.
So my counter argument is that one, you don't have a reason to suggest that. That's the first point. Because these are not people you bundle in a plane and return.
They volunteer
people
to
who
come
have agreed to come back.
But in the story too, I think I've read is like some would go to the supplier, to receive the money instead of getting the materials.
It's just like fuel coupons.
Something like that. Yeah. So I think this story raises issues on a number of levels. IOM is a foreign company; it's an international company, and the EU is also a foreign institution organization over there.
Yeah.
Now, they have the wish to support Gambia. All right. Yeah. Where should our government stand? Our government cannot stand outside of this arrangement. So that when I read the story, my issue is, okay, why is the Ministry of Youth in this? Why is the youth institutions, national youth institutions, to be involved in this process, so that you look at the whole arrangement, on what basis is it made? So that it raises the second issue, therefore, how importantly, seriously is our government taking matters of youth, and which is national development as a whole? So that if the EU are providing you millions of euros for something like this, you as a government want to engage this in a manner that you really maximize benefit and not just utilize it for the migrants coming, but do it in such a way that it will in fact help to reduce the incidence of migration in the first place. Right. So which goes to show the level of responsibility, the sense of responsibility in our government, which I have always said is poor. All right. What they should do, they will not do, or if they do so, they do it very badly, very poorly, so that at the end of the day, it doesn't bring a transformation in the lives of the people. And the third thing, Cham, that this highlights, again, to make us have a conversation as a nation, because this is aid.
Absolutely.
Now, Trump has got up here now and said he is going to stop some aid and all, and the whole of Africa is jumping helter-skelter.
Yeah.
All right? Because ultimately you come to realize the very basis of our national development is founded on aid. Yes. You go to Ministry of Agriculture, you will see project after project after project after project. You go to education, the same. You go to health, the same. You go to energy, you go to sports. I mean, every sector, you realize it is all donor funded, to the point you want to believe what happens if all these things stop. Where will we be? Now, as a nation, that is a matter to think critically.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you say marching for solidarity, for self-reliance and all of those things, for national development, how do you understand our national development right now? So that when you look at it right now, our national development is so fragile. Because it is based on aid. All right. And this aid money, what it is doing, it is only encouraging misgovernance. Because since the aid money is there, the government needs to manage our tax money properly. You know, that aid money itself, if it is loans and grants, should be managed in such a way that you cannot give somebody loan and, you know, help and mismanage that to the point that it's coming back to even ask for debt relief. But more seriously, you know, the more aid and, you know, you take, the more poverty increases. Now, that's a contradiction.
Yeah.
All right. So we really need to sit and talk about the very framework, the very foundation of our national development process. What is it based upon? What is the direction? Because as it is right now, I mean, if what Trump did, others also do, our education will collapse, our agriculture will collapse, our security will collapse, our energy will collapse. All right. But even where they are giving all this aid, at the same time, you are unable to produce jobs. You are unable to produce
something
rice.
tangible.
You are unable to produce, you know, provide electricity, and so on. So, at 60, as a nation, this is your trajectory. This is your journey. You don't think you need to stop and say, look, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yes, the way we are going is not sustainable. And, you know, it is something that, as I said, apart from the misgovernance, the corruption of it. Because aid money, what is it providing? Big salaries, big vehicles, you know, a cozy life, project staff. All right. At the end of the day, I mean, even if they go on a side visit, they are all paid per diem, transport allowance, and so on.
The pajeros.
Yeah. Our civil society, every workshop we organize, if you come here, you get transport refund. Now that is corruption. Yes. So aid money generates a culture of corruption.
Definitely.
Yeah, because why would Kerfatu send you, I mean, to say go for a training at Karaba International Center? You go down there and, you know, the republics give you transport refund. No, you went there because you are a worker of Kerfatu, and Kerfatu is paying you a salary. Yeah. You go to that training, go enjoy the training or the meeting, and come back and do a report. But you go and get a transport refund. So our entire development framework is founded on corruption, simply because of aid money. And even us today, the Transport Center for Rights and Justice, if you organize a workshop, you'll be compelled to provide transport refund, because otherwise, the next time somebody else will not come there. All right. So when you look at it, therefore, the entire process of development mentality, you know, development thinking and everything is founded on corruption driven by aid. And because of that, it also limits our ability to engage in accountability. So that today, if you want to raise issues, I may not be invited. You know, So because if I want to be invited, then I may have to ignore.
I see.
Yes, I cannot go and do that protest because I will not be invited. Or if I go to, take them to court, I will not be invited. All right. So that means eventually accountability weakens.
Absolutely.
So when you look at it, Sham, we are in a very serious situation.
Yeah,
indeed.
And I'm not aware of any nationwide, as far as I know, we've done this story, any nationwide or national reintegration plan. Like if migrants come, this is the national strategy to reintegrate them.
So the government is absent. It is only the IOM dealing with these people.
Absent in this. I think this is largely left to IOM, because they've got the money from European Union to be able to handle. I think it's true that government should have had its own reintegration program that takes into account how many migrants are away, how many are stranded. Immigration should be part of it, so that they know how many migrants are stranded, where are they, how many have returned, when are they returning, when they come, what sort of services do they have access to, how do we help them, what are their concerns, why did they leave? Because development cannot even be, this is what the elites do. Syria Jata used to say something that's very profound, that people need to be the authors of their own development. Now, on the surface, this seems like an everyday statement, but it's not, because development is supposed to be generated on data. So, for example, you need to know what the problems of the people are. Why did they leave? Is it because of jobs? Is it because the jobs that are there, but these are menial jobs. They are not paying enough. You need something to be able to understand a people. So otherwise you can't be able to address a situation like this. And if you leave it just strictly to IOM, situations like this would happen. We see the implementation of youth empowerment project. It was done by ITC, right? Yeah, it was being implemented by an NGO. It was funded by European Union. So why is that the case? If you want to help our young people, it's young people of our country. If you don't want to do it, leave. Take your money elsewhere. You can't bring your international NGO from your country to come here. It's like the Americans do. So, for example, if Americans are selling you arms, it's American companies that are going to be paid to sell you arms.
The Chinese
so all that you have is the effect of bombing someone else. That's why you have, but you don't have the money.
Look like our conference center. The Chinese built it for us.
Exactly. So there are some things, there is a certain element even in the aid that reverses back. So for example, India, when they built India gave us a loan to build our National Assembly. They build it, they stuff it with Indian stuff.
Indian stuff.
Such that even the bulb, you have to change it.
You have to go to India and order it.
So these are some of the things. But then IOM, the story of youth reintegration should not be left to just to UN. Gambia government should be part of the picture so that it's adequately coordinated.
Good. That was the latest from the Republic, and if you want to read, it's www.republic.gm. Mustapha Darboe of the Republic, and Madi Jobarteh of the Edward Francis Center for Justice. Thank you all for being on the brunch, giving your perspective on the state of the nation at 60 years. That will be celebrated on Tuesday, the 18th February. So until then, we wish you all a happy anniversary of our 60th independence celebrations. Thank you very much. The brunch will be back on Saturday, inshallah.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
Agada
Mbijan raganyadi.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyenji.
Okay. Korsa. Nsila ID soto.
Ha, sa soto. Sorry. Agada.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariya.
Ah,
mbare mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariya.
Ah, jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbari ya bere. Ha. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato nim fo bolong blabe to.
56 branches mola sota Gambia jam.
Ha?
Ha. Gambia kono anin Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kono kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannam number 1 di nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi mani domorol di fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ma fa kendol sotale je.
Ha e wo moyo diat ha.
Apelenta
ni wo ka ni lafta nyelen kendol e binaji.
Yalo bukani la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Abaraka.